Hello everyone, hope all of you are having a very pleasant day. Today we will be discussing about exception handling in Python, right? So let us see what are exceptions. Exceptions are the errors that are detected during execution. So whenever there is an error, exceptions are raised, right? Okay, let us see the blocks in exceptions. That is first is try, and this code will raise an exception, okay, and accept, accept code to handle exception, code to handle exception. Code to handle exception, right? Now let us see how to catch these specific exceptions in Python. Okay, let's write a code for that. First of all, I will define a function that is divide, suppose numbers, and I will take two parameters into it, a and b. Now let me return some value like a slash b, and it will be hash accept exception might raise if b is 0. Try a equals, for example, integer and input enter a, right? And then b equals to integer input and enter b. Now print after division divide numbers a comma b, right? Then equals to 1 comma 2 comma 3 and print a of 3. Exception will raise here as size of array. A is 3, hence second index then just mention accept block accept, okay, in the accept index error print again accept 0 division error, print 0 0 division error. Now what is this? Let me run this. Okay, run without debugging. Enter A. Okay, what is the value? Suppose let me say 2 0, enter, and give 0 division error. Okay, so let us understand the code initially. Okay, what is the code? So def is a function we have defined. Def is a keyword used to define a function. The function name is divide numbers. A and B are the parameters passed, and this function is returning something, that is A divided by B. It will return a value of A divided by B. Okay, if B is 0, if I take the value of B as 0, then it will raise an exception. Okay, and it will raise 0 division exception, and the control will go to this particular. Once here the exception is being raised, it will go to this except block 0 division error, and 0 division error will get printed. Now there is a try block within the function. If it is not 0, if the B is not 0, the control will go to try block. It will take while taking this A and B value also, it will take this A and B, it will take the value, and then it will see like what is the value of B. Once it says that it is 0, it will give the exception, the 0 division error. It will go to try block. If the value is proper, okay, if it takes the proper input, then it will just mention the result of that like division. Whatever the result is there, it will mention that. Okay, now next it will go to this particular array part. It will go through this array, then it will try to print the third index. Okay, third index element, but the third index is not present in this particular array because it is 0, 1 and 2. There are only the positions from 0 to 2, right? The third index is not present, so in that case it will give index error. Then it will the control will go to the exception block. Now what's happening here? Okay, let me re-execute it. So once you re-execute it, and I will just tell you as 2, it will give you after division value, that is 2, and then the index error. Index error, why? Because this index is not present in the array, and after division is 2.0. So accept index error. Okay, so it will give you index error, right? Here as the value of B was not 0, it didn't give you 0 division error, but as the element was not present for this particular, it gave the index error, but 0 division error it didn't give because the division was okay, and it just gave the result of that division, that is 2.0. Now let us re-execute. Okay, now for example, if I put 4 and 89, after division, see, it gave the whole value. For the decimal point also, it gave the whole value with respect to A divided by B wala result. Cleared? Cool. Now let me put this to now let us execute like try, accept and else block together. Try block, accept block and else block, and let us see what happens here. So try so B equals to 10, C equals to 2, A equals to B by C, right? Now what is happening here? Except, and now here it is print exception raised, else print no exception raised. Now let's see what happens here. Okay, cool. So let me run this. So it is telling no exception raised, right? Now let us put the value of C as 0 and run this. It is telling exception raised as an output. Okay, so what is happening here is, like, when the value is 0, it is giving the exception raised, like zero division error. It's giving the exception raised because the value of this particular divider is 0, right? And when it has some value like 2 or something, then it is telling no exception raised, like the else block is getting printed. Okay, it is giving you no exception raised, like else block is getting printed when everything is all right. So else is executing fine, and when there is an exception is executing, else is not executing. The control is not going to else block. Cleared? Now let us see what happens when try, except, else, and finally or all the 4 blocks gets executed. So try, then temp is equals to 1 comma 2 comma 3, temp of n, except exception as e, print exception block e. Else print in else block. Okay, and now I want to print finally block, and then print finally block. So run this. So this is what is done here. Try is there. Okay, in the try we have defined an array and temp of 4 is there. Okay, this is 4. Okay, and what is happening here is accept exception as e and exception block e. If there is an exception, then it will go to accept block. Otherwise, okay, there was an exception. Initially it was n and the name n is not defined, so it gave the exception. Okay, exception block got printed, and else, and then finally block is there, and finally block will execute whether exception is there or not there, but finally block will execute. So now I want to see what happens here. Initially it was n, so now also, like, list index out of range. Initially it printed name n is not defined. Now list index out of range, because there is no 4th index existing in this array. So it just gave exception and the finally block got printed, but else was not printed, right? So let us see the difference. Why use finally or else and try and accept block? Okay, we will see this. Let me remove all this. Let us execute one more. Let us create one more function like check out, and within this I want something like items in cart. In cart, something like this. So now it is try. Okay, try. Then id is equals to get order id for booking book items and items in cart. Exception except so what is happening here, that is Def is the function, again checkout, then there is a parameter passed into it, items in a cart, there is try except else, finally all the 4 blocks within the function. Try, in the try block we have defined id, get order id for booking, okay, and book items, then items in the cart is the parameters passed here. So what is happening here? Okay, then accept, which throws an exception error, okay, and in the else block there is a id, and finally also has the id, else also has, and finally also has the id. So now let us see and execute what happens here. Okay, let's ignore this particular for now. We will see into a next example, because there is something missing into this code. What happens if errors are raised in exception or finally block? Okay, let us try this way. Try block, then raise, okay, exception. Okay, let me write something like this, exception, okay, and let me do this, try block. Okay, now I just want to use raise keyword here. So accept exception as e, and print accept block. Raise exception. Finally, okay, finally, and let's print here, print, okay, print run without debugging. What happens here? Oh, accept block, it initially printed which one, accept block, try block, and then finally block is being printed. And then why it is giving the exception try block, try block, try block, then they're handling another exception occurred. So it got executed through all of them. It initially went through try block, so try block got exception block got printed initially, The control went to exception block. Okay, except block got printed, then try block got printed, and then finally block printed. But the raise exception and print except block E exception as E. So when the exception at try block got raised, it went to except block. Okay, so initially when the control went to try block, it checked the try block there, then it checked the except block. Okay, because it found the exception in try block, so it went through except block. Within the except block, it printed except block initially. Okay, in the output here it printed except block initially, then the control went back to try block. Okay, then the control went to try block, and hence it also raised the exceptions for the try block, exception try block, exception except block, and exception finally block. So it raised the exception for all the three, I guess. Raise exception, try block, exception try block, raise exception except block, exception except block, and then finally block. It's clearly mentioned during handling of the above exception, another exception occurred. Like when it was handling the try exception, another exception occurred at the except block, and again the another exception occurred at the finally block. So the exceptions here were in series in all the three blocks. Hence it is given during handling of the above exception, another exception occurred in except block, and again during the handling of the above exception, another exception occurred here in the finally block. Cool. So it is initially it is except block got printed because the try block was already having exception, and the control went to except block and exception got raised here. I hope this is being understood when we have the recurring exceptions in all the three major blocks, that what is happening here at this particular output. So yeah, that's it for today, and we will meet in the next video where we will be discussing about OOPS concept in Python. That's it. Thank you for today.